Welcome to See Beneath Your Beautiful, where guests share stories of adversity and perseverance, which inspire, encourage, and challenge us. We embrace these tough conversations, intimately exploring our loves, fears, and hopes with a delicious combination of depth and lightness.
Hi, I'm Karin Freeland. I am a recovered corporate workaholic. I spent 15 years in corporate chasing the paychecks, the titles, only to wake up one day and realize this does not fulfill me. There just felt like this gaping hole, even though everything on paper looked really awesome. Mm-hmm. And so I set off on this journey to figure out, what do I really want out of life? And it's brought me to where I am now, an author and a coach. I'm also a mom. I have two boys, 6th and 7th grade. And we have a dog, Kobe, and I am married for now 14 years. And we're based in South Carolina. That was a big move. We moved from Jersey about a year and a half.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What sparked that?
Oh, many things. But really just a lot of the change that I was going through in my life and realizing, hey, if I can reinvent my career, why not reinvent where we live and where do we want to live? Where do we want to raise kids? What kind of house do we want? And so we just started rethinking everything. We're like, we're done with the hustle and bustle of the city. We don't want that to be our lifestyle anymore. We just knew we wanted something a little more country, a little more space. One of my favorite things is walking in the morning with my dog and seeing the cows. I did an Instagram video a while ago, but I was driving to get something at the Dollar General. And I literally drove by it 3 times because I got so enamored with the baby goats. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? I had to literally say Dollar General the whole way in the car because I kept driving by it. It was hilarious.
I'm from Miami, and so I live in Idaho for a long time now, but I'm still excited about cows. So I totally hear you. I'm a city girl.
I'm actually headed to Miami in November for the book awards.
Oh, nice.
My book is called The Ins and Outs of My Vagina, a penetrating memoir. I actually won gold medal in Reader's Favorite for the humor comedy genre. So I'm really excited.
That's so exciting. Well, tell me about your book.
During this whole midlife crisis, someone at work asked me a question and they were like, look, well, if you died tomorrow, what would you regret not doing? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't answer that question. I knew all the things in my life that weren't working, that I didn't like, but I couldn't actually tell you what I wanted to replace it with. So I started watching the video, The Secret, which was also recommended to me. And it's all about the law of attraction and how, you put something out in the universe and you can make it happen and like attracts like. So if you're positive, you'll attract positivity. And I thought, well, this is really fascinating. I wonder, this might work for me. I don't know. I'll try it because what I'm doing right now isn't working. And all of a sudden, Jack Canfield comes on towards the end of the video and he's talking about how he got all of his books written. And it's all about action, right? Yeah, you can manifest all you want, but if you don't actually do something to make it a reality, it's never going to happen. And just him talking about the book, it literally just sent right out of my, the back of my head, the depths of my brain. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have a memoir sitting on my laptop that I started 10 years ago in 2009 on my first maternity leave. I have to finish that. That's it. That's my calling.
That's so awesome. So what is the book about?
So it's really a journey through womanhood, right? So from 5 years old, even realizing that I have this body part and what is this and what is it for and how does it work? To getting my first period, to losing my virginity, to having a baby, to debating whether to get the episiotomy, dealing with miscarriage, something that a lot of women don't talk about. I didn't talk about until I wrote the book. And chasing the orgasm, because, unfortunately, most women are in relationships where they are not experiencing the same level of pleasure as the men are experiencing as on a frequent basis. So I thought, why is nobody talking about this?
Yeah.
Because I felt my whole life like I was broken, there was something wrong with me. My vagina didn't function properly. And turns out, actually, most women are going through exactly the same thing to varying degrees. If I could save one other woman from feeling like she's the only one that this is happening to, I was like, I have to tell this story. It's so worth it.
I'm going to tell you this story, but is crazy and pisses me off.
Please do.
In my first marriage, my husband and I did not get along. He was not nice to me about my weight. And so my body rejected him, you know? And so I couldn't, how do I say this for podcast? Couldn't get wet. My body did not respond to him at all.
Sure.
And I went to see a doctor who at one time gave me numbing cream so that he could have sex with me anyway, which hurt worse because then he got numb and it lasted longer. And then another doctor, I'm so mad at the medical community. Another doctor was putting I think it's called a TENS unit on my vaginal lips or my labia to try to get me to relax. Like it was my fault. I understand that it was my fault because my body, but also it was the fault of the relationship. And my body was not broken.
No, it wasn't. There was something bigger.
I know that because as soon as I left him, ta-da, my body does work. That just makes me so angry that we just assume the woman's body is broken rather than the relationship was broken.
Right. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I don't think I ever have.
And that's the thing, we go through so many of these situations in silence and we don't talk about them and we carry that around with us. So it's not just affecting our sex life, but it's affecting everything, how we parent, how we are friends to people. Because I just felt for a long time like there was something missing. I was less than. I wasn't living a full life because I was missing out on certain things. I started writing the book in 2009 when I was on maternity leave with my first son. And I actually write about it in chapter 30, all lubed up with nowhere to go.
Oh, I love that.
I tell the story about how the book was born. And then, like I said, I kind of put it on a shelf for almost 10 years until 2019, when I watched The Secret and decided to go ahead and this is going to be my thing. So it was actually published September of 2021. So it was about 2 years or so, from saying committing to, hey, I'm going to do this to actually getting it out.
So I speak very openly with certain friends about sex. And for others, for instance, my sister, I mentioned the word sex and I apologize because that's just not the relationship.
Sure.
So how do people perceive you because you're openly talking about your vagina? I'm so appreciative that you are because I wish it wasn't such a taboo subject.
I know. Vagina is not a dirty word. It is
right.
An anatomical body part like femur, medulla oblongata, arm, leg, whatever, right? And yet...
Exactly. That's what I think.
Yeah. And yet we do treat it like a dirty word. So I think it's mixed, right? I mean, there are people who are saying congratulating me, thank you. Yes, I love this book. I want it. There's others that I think are kind of snickering, did she say vagina? But they kind of want to check it out because there's that curiosity. And then there's the others that maybe it just really isn't for them, and that's okay too. It's not going to be for everybody. But I think when we cannot appreciate a major part of our body, and when I say vagina, I mean the whole thing, right? The vulva, everything, the clit, everything that's combined in that area. When we negate that whole part of our body, we're neglecting a big piece of who we are and our sexual pleasure and all of that. I've even had to come to terms with some of this. And I have done podcasts where I'm like, oh gosh, I think I did go too far. I have children. I did not need to share that much information, right? I'm even kind of still finding my comfort zone with how much I want to give away, how much I want to share. But I'm just glad that we're finally having these conversations and talking about it.
Me too. It wasn't until my mid-30s that I think I even had an orgasm. So
yeah.
Forget that whole first marriage. And then it wasn't till very recently, actually, that I have become so empowered and stopped judging my desires. That I think I wish people would talk about. Somebody said, don't yuck somebody's yum. And I was yucking my own yum. I was judging my own self. And I finally realized through coaching, I don't have to judge myself. I can just like what I like with a consensual partner. So what difference does it make?
Isn't that so freeing?
I am almost 55 though, and it took this long. So that's why I want the conversations to be had, because there's nothing wrong if you're enjoying it and it's with a partner who also enjoys it. So that was really hard for me though.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm there. And so do you have a message to women about that kind of thing? I mean, what is your message? What is your mission with the book?
Yeah, I would say the big mission is just getting on the first name basis with your vagina. So, in the book, her name is V, and we have a lot of dialogue and back and forth. And sometimes it's a bit of a love-hate relationship, but
yeah,
listening to her and taking her seriously. And I don't always buy into what V is telling me, and sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. But there was a lot of years that I either let her take the full reins and I then had to pay the consequences.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or I shut her down completely, right? And so to your point, I love that phrase, yucked my own yum, right? And then didn't want to allow myself to explore, or, with toys, for example, right?
Right.
That was like really taboo. And I felt shame. And I literally would hide under my blanket. Like my blanket would be over my head because I was like, what if God sees? like, seriously, like this is the stuff that would go through my head.
Right.
Well, you can't have an orgasm when you're worried about, your maker, who, by the way, knows everything you're doing anyway, seeing you orgasm.
And importantly, made your body to orgasm. It is a function. It's supposed to be this way.
Yes. That's literally the clit's only function. It serves no other purpose. Zero, nada. That's what it's supposed to do. Why would it be there if it weren't to experience that pleasure?
That's very interesting that we do shame ourselves because society has shamed us.
And there's a lot of performance anxiety, I think, for some women that goes into sex, right? Like I know there's a certain amount of noise I probably need to make. There's certain sounds or things I should say or what he likes. And some days I'm like, I just don't feel like doing that right now, and allowing yourself to be okay with that and go, I'm not going to fake this. I'm not going to turn up the theatrics just to please him if he's not doing what I like, because all I'm doing is teaching him to do more of what I don't actually like.
Besides the book, you're a coach?
Yeah, that's right. I help women who want to discover their true purpose, own their power, and build a pathway to freedom so they can reinvent their life like I did. I mean, it doesn't mean they're going to write a book about their vagina, of course, but I really want to help them get to the core of what's the legacy you want to leave? Before our time is up here, what do you want to do?
And what are some of the ways you help women? How do you do that?
Yeah, sure. So I have a signature program. It's called Edit Your Life. And it's really a 4-step process where I help them to uncover their purpose and envision their big goal. So there's a lot of journaling that happens, right? In those early phases, like we're doing what I call turning inward. We're not listening to what everyone else thinks we should do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of, my clients will come to me like, well, but this is what I've always done, or this is what I went to school for. And it's like, is it making you happy? No. Okay. Guess what? You are empowered to not have to do this anymore. You can make a change. And so once we kind of dream up and we think really big, then we start to prioritize, okay, which of these goals do you really want to go after right now? And once we know what we want to go after, then we kind of clear the plate. What do we need to get rid of so that we can clear space to actually bring these goals to fruition? Then we really start to look at documenting the process. Like, how are you going to actually bring this to reality, right? What are the little steps that we need to start taking? And the whole while, right, I'm coaching on confidence, on limiting beliefs, all the negative thoughts that get in our way that try to hold us back, the self-sabotaging behaviors. And we look at the whole picture, the health and wellness. I have a client, I was just talking to her last week about meal planning because she's eating like garbage. So then she feels like crap and she doesn't want to do the work. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, if we get your health in check, then the other stuff is going to start to come. And then I look at the I is for investing in the goal. So where do we need to spend more time, energy, money? What other trainings do you need? What other skill sets do you need? Who else do you need to network with that can come in and support you? And then T is all about taking action. So I am like their accountability coach the entire way, like checking in with them. Did you do this? How is this coming? What happened here? What happened with the interview? Did you send out your resume? Have you applied to grad school? Like you said you were gonna, and just keeping it top of mind so that they can't fail. They have that cheerleader the whole way through.
Did you have an accountability partner or a cheerleader, or what work did you do? How do you know these steps?
So it really was the process that I took to get out of my midlife crisis. And I did have a coach, and I'm so fortunate to have had that experience. She thought she was coaching me to grow into a C-suite role. And in the process, I discovered that I really wanted to write my book. And so she really helped coach me out of, my default life and into my dreams.
Nice.
And from there, because I had such a great experience with coaches, I had a book coach for my book launch. I had a coach for my business. I've had a marketing strategist coach. I'm actually starting a mastermind this week. Once you get the coaching bug and you get that community and that sense of support, it's really hard to let go of it. And you don't want to let go of it. The coach typically has their own coach, right? That helps them up level and take their game to the next level. Well, one thing that I would love to share in relation to my book is that a portion of the proceeds go to Alliance for Period Supplies, which is an organization based here in the US. And it really helps women and young girls who don't have the money and the means to afford period products. It may shock some of your listeners. I know I didn't realize this until I got involved with the organization, but there's a lot of women who actually have to use like old socks or cut up t-shirts or newspaper, toilet paper from, the school bathroom. Like that is their period product.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No. And it breaks my heart because being a woman's tough enough.
Right.
Then to not, we didn't ask for our periods, right? We weren't like, yeah, like I want that. So it's taxed also like a luxury product, as if it's a luxury to have a period. Yeah, no, of course not. All these societal messages again, it's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
So here these women are, a lot of times if they don't have the products, they can't go to school, they can't go to work. And so it's very easy to fall behind in society and your work. And you can't even go to school to get all the classes in or whatever, or graduate or learn the material to graduate with good grades. How are you supposed to compete later on a bigger stage? It makes it unfair right from the get-go. So I love what they're doing. I love what they stand for, this organization. They have about 125 chapters here in the US.
Oh, cool.
And a portion of the proceeds from every copy of my book will go to their organization to help end period poverty.
I love that. Where can you get your book?
On Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. If you're in South Carolina, there's a bunch of indie bookstores that do carry it, but pretty much anywhere digitally.
Oh, awesome.
It's a super fun read. So I hope that everyone will give it a check out. And if you have like baby showers or wedding showers or anything like that, it makes a great gift for other women.
Yeah, I really love it. I love the title. Good job on that.
Thank you.
And I think I'll like the chapter names too, because it seems like you were clever there also.
They're very fun.
What does your husband think of your book?
Well, funny story. It was actually his idea. It's been an emotional roller coaster for him a little bit, right? Like initially it was his idea. And then I think when he started reading some of my chapters, he was like, wait, what? You're going to tell them about the time we made a videotape? I was like, sorry.
Yeah.
Then he was like, oh my gosh, I hope your mom doesn't read this. My mom can't read this. I'm like, it's fine. No parents, no blood relatives should read this. Like everyone else, go get a copy. So I think now he's just in the place of support. Like he's very happy that I followed through on my dream. He has seen some of the recognition and the awards that it's won and the 5-star reviews that have come in. So I think he's just really happy to see me happy again.
Yeah.
Because I was not fun to live with during the midlife crisis years. Like that was just not enjoyable at all. So now it's like, oh, I have my wife back. This is nice.
Oh, awesome. Has your mom read it?
No. Well, that's not true. She read the first 7 chapters, which I told her she was allowed to read because it's kind of like, it's like the benign stuff, me getting my period. Like the first time I felt a little tingling situation going on down there and like, what is this? So I figured that probably wouldn't offend her too much. But then she was flipping through the book and she got to the chapter on Myrtle Beach. And she's like, oh, I remember that senior year she went to Myrtle Beach. And she started reading it and very quickly realized she needed to abort that mission. So she
that's funny.
Closed the book and she said, that's it. I'm not reading anything else. I'm like, good.
That's funny. I don't think I'd be horrified to hear anything about my daughters. They would be in the reverse, very horrified to hear anything about me, which is fair. I'm the mom.
Right.
But one daughter has told me she had been raped and had told me the instance and so I think I'm glad I'm open enough to hear those kind of things that we can have that kind of conversation. There's nothing I can do except my heart breaks.
Sure.
Also, just in solidarity, be there as a woman for her and understand what she's gone through. I just really wish the conversations weren't so hard to have. I just appreciate that you're bringing these kind of conversations to the light. It shouldn't be taboo. So thanks for just saying it like it is. And I do remember a long time ago, oh my God, 30 years ago, I was listening to Dr. Laura. This was 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody had said, what do I tell my kid to call her vagina? She was saying, she had all these code words. And Dr. Laura was like, vagina.
Yes.
That's the word. There's no reason to not say it. So I just really appreciate you saying it's just a vagina. It is a body part. It is not embarrassing to say it.
Yeah.
It's not a bad word.
It isn't. And I think the sooner that we can educate, young women on this and make it okay, maybe the next generation won't have the kind of stigma that we had. But it's interesting because the book, I do talk, and thank you for sharing that story about your daughter. I talk about this time where I was like, I thought I was going to be a big girl and go over to this guy's house and we were going to make out. And I was like really excited to get to third base. I was like, we're going to do it. And then I got there and I was like, I don't feel good. I don't want to do this. I'm not ready. And I had no strategies. No one had ever told me like what to do if you're in a situation with a boy and you've changed your mind, like you don't want to do this anymore. It's okay. That's fine. And how do you get out of that situation?
Right.
The book is for 18 and up, but I'm hoping that women with children, with daughters, are going to have these conversations after they read my book and go, crap, she was in 8th grade. Well, that's pretty young. And that was, 20 some years ago, 30 some years ago. Maybe I need to talk to my children about this a little earlier than I think so that they're more prepared for if and when they get in these situations.
Oh my gosh. I totally agree. My mom, to talk to me about my period, gave me a book from the library.
Yeah.
She did not even talk to me about my period. And I was in that situation countless times where I didn't want to have sex and had sex anyway because I didn't know how to say no.
Yes.
That is a thing that happens. And my daughter had the same thing. She said she went to the guy's house, changed her mind. He wouldn't let her change her mind. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
We do need these conversations. I don't know who starts it, but I would like to be part of it.
Yeah. And for our boys, like I'm a mom with 2 boys. And so when I was writing the book, one time they came up behind me and I didn't know they were behind me because they knew they were not allowed to read my book. And when I was working, you can't sit next to me and like look at my computer screen. This is for adults only. And so, but they snuck up behind me and it was the chapter on me getting my period. And I just hear, oh my gosh, was your vagina really bleeding? And I turn around and I'm like, get out of here. I'm like, but yes, it was. I'm like, I'll explain later.
Yeah.
So then I had to explain the whole period thing to them and tampons and whatnot. But my hope is now that like by knowing this, that there are going to be the boys in school that when they see a girl and she's got a stain on the back of her jeans, they don't point and make fun of her. They go, oh, hey, do you want my sweatshirt? Just tie it around your waist and bring it back. We need those kind of guys. We need those heroes that don't create trauma around something that's already traumatic enough. Right. And can help lift them up. So yeah, the conversation definitely needs to happen. It needs to happen on both sides.
Yes, definitely. I like that.
And no means no.
I wish I had known that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying rape, but how many unwanted sexual encounters I've had, which it wasn't rape, but it sure wasn't consensual.
Right.
I don't know what it was. It just wasn't wanted. And then after all those experiences, we're supposed to embrace our womanhood and enjoy sex. And
right.
So it's a real mind fuck.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's exactly what it is. I think I'll just share maybe one piece of advice for your listeners who really are like, I kind of am not loving my life. I feel like maybe it's not bad, but it's just not an A++, it's just kind of status quo, right? You're going through the motions. Every day kind of feels like Groundhog's Day and it's the same thing over and over. I think one of the things for me that really started to change my perspective on life was rekindling some hobbies. some old passions that I had forgotten about. And I felt like I never had time because as a workaholic, right, you don't prioritize anything but your job. And so I started taking like one weekend out of the month and going into New York City. This is when I lived in New Jersey, and taking a hip hop yoga class with my cousin and then going to lunch. It was awesome. And it just, for like this brief moment, I would be like, oh my gosh, I'm human again. There is life outside of my work.
Right.
It doesn't have to be my whole being. And I started just seeing the world from a different perspective because I had this new source of joy. I was no longer this one-dimensional corporate workaholic. I was like, oh, and I do yoga. Right. And I take hip hop classes sometimes online. Because then once I got into it, I was like, oh, I want to do more of this. How can I not have to go to the city every week? How can I do this on a random Tuesday? Oh, so I can do it online. Great. And then obviously with everything that happened with the pandemic, it was like everything was online. So you could access everything. And it was just little changes, one by one, adding them into my life. It's almost like a cake, right? When you're baking a cake, like if you throw all the ingredients in once and you try to mix it, it's going to get clumpy. It's going to be really hard to stir. But if you just pour in like one thing at a time, mix it, next thing, mix it. It's like really easy. It's nice and thin. Everything is just smooth. And that's how I feel like I was able to completely reinvent my life. Like one small change at a time, but these changes had such massive impact. And I just kept going, just kept adding one little more ingredient. And it didn't happen overnight. But here I am almost 3 years later, you know, and midlife crisis is totally gone. I'm living my dream life. I get time with my family. I have this sense of freedom. I have a purposeful job. It's like, now I feel like, what more could I possibly want?
So do you get people saying that they can't fit that in or they don't have the money to do what they want?
Oh, yeah. People love excuses.
I think if it's something you really want, you'll make time and you'll make the money and just divert money from one place to another.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's how I got the book written. People will say, but wait, you were working a full-time job. You were a parent. Your kids were very heavily involved in multiple sports. You're a wife. You have a house. You know, all these things. How did you write a book? I made time for it.
Exactly.
You know, like in some days, I literally would set a timer for 15 minutes and I would run upstairs and I'd tell the kids, Mommy needs 15 minutes to edit this chapter. That's it. And then I'll be down and the timer would go off and I'd come back down. But I knew every single day that I was getting a little piece in. And eventually it was like, no, I'm going to stay up till midnight. Like I want to stay up to midnight and finish this chapter. Like I'm on a roll, you know, like, and it was great. And it was almost like this supernatural power that took over that I just was like, I have to write this. I have to write this.
Yeah, totally get it.
But you fit it in.
I'm just starting a magazine and I am working all hours because I can't wait to see it get done. So I totally get it. There's a desire.
Yes, yes.
And I would say I don't have any free time in general, but I'm making some free time. So I'm just not doing something else to make this happen.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about prioritization. And that's one of the things I try to help my clients with when they come to me is like, okay, we can't do it all at once. And so anybody that tells you can do it all at once is lying. They are lying to you. They're crazy. It's not humanly possible. There's only so many hours in the day and we actually do need sleep to function. So I try to really weed out that hustle mentality and that hustle culture. I mean, you might have a week where you hustle, right? Or you might have a big push before something. But this like 24/7, 365 hustle, no, like we don't do that. That does not bring fulfillment.
I really did enjoy this conversation very much.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of See Beneath You Beautiful, hosted by Hara Allison. And thanks for your ratings and reviews. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Stay tuned.